Hi, I'm Caden, here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're listening to Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
So, on today's episode of Eating W's, we have quite a news dump for you. We are going to knock out all of the extensions, all of the cuts, all of the trades, a bunch of the biggest signings, so you're going to hear it all right here, right now. So, get ready for a lot of names and a lot of numbers, and let's hope I don't screw any of them up.
A lot of information.
A lot of info coming your way, so let's just jump right into it. So, to start off, we actually don't have anything with free agency, but actually some pretty sad news. Michigan edge rusher David Ojabo limped off the field with the help of trainers at Michigan's Pro Day earlier this week, and it was sadly confirmed that he tore his Achilles. He was a pretty much guaranteed first-round talent. Almost everybody thought he was going somewhere.
Yeah.
And now he'll probably be more of like a late second, maybe even into the late thirds. So that really sucks for him, but I think that he'll come off this injury great, and he'll still be a really good player. He's only going to miss, I heard that he'll probably only miss like the first couple of weeks of the official season, but then he's also going to miss the whole offseason, so that's pretty big as a rookie coming in. But hopefully he can recover from that and still make it great as an NFL player. So hoping for good things for David Ojabo. But now moving on to some of the free agency stuff, we're going to start with just some extensions. Some of these are kind of like re-signings, but to the same team, so I'm just going to kind of group them in with the extensions. But to start off, the Vikings are restructuring wide receiver Adam Thielen's contract, keeping him in purple for the next couple of years, and also cutting almost $6 million off of our cap. So now I want to say we are, if I'm not mistaken, like 3 or 4 mil over the cap. So we might even sign a couple more guys before this free agency ends. And there's a couple of inside linemen that I'm really hoping we pick up before free agency ends. Moving on, the Panthers and wide receiver DJ Moore agreed to a 3-year, $61.9 million extension. And then the Panthers also kind of re-sign or extend cornerback Dante Jackson on a 3-year, $35.1 million deal. So the Panthers picking up two pretty solid players that are already on their team and making sure that they stay with them.
They missed out on Deshaun Watson, so I guess they're trying to just keep their own now.
Yeah, now that they got all that cap space just burning a hole in their pocket,
Yeah.
they gotta make sure they keep their other guys. But those are two really good players. I was surprised that they even let Dante Jackson go into free agency, but then they end up getting him back. And then DJ Moore is a solid all-around receiver, and for the first 3 weeks of this season, he was their offense. Man, he was averaging 15 targets and almost 10 receptions a game. It was insane.
I read on Twitter that the last 3 years, he's the only receiver to have over 1,400 scrimmage yards, for the past 3 years.
I'm not surprised.
Not explosive numbers, but consistent.
Yeah, they've just never really had that quarterback that he can really show off, so it kind of sucks, because him and Deshaun Watson would have been a lethal pairing, I feel like. But we'll see if Sam Darnold can really get a grasp on his 5th-year option and get his last chance there in Carolina. But I don't know. After last year, I know he got injured and stuff. I'm still kind of on the Darnold train, but definitely more nervous than I was at the beginning of last season. Moving on, the Eagles do the same kind of re-sign extension for DT Fletcher Cox on a 1-year, $14 million deal. So it would have been weird to see him play anywhere but Philadelphia. So I'm happy they get him back. And I'm curious
Unless it was Green Bay.
Yeah. Curious to see if he'll retire after this season, because I think he's getting pretty old. The Rams extend quarterback Matt Stafford on a 3-year, $129 million deal. So they finally got their franchise QB that they've been searching for so long. They're going to make sure they keep him, try to run it back. And then most recently, just today actually, the Saints get back Jameis Winston on a 2-year, $28 million deal. So that's a nice deal for both Jameis and team. It's a team-friendly deal. The Saints are very much struggling with their cap, so they probably couldn't have given him a ton of money. But I really hope he doesn't get injured again, because I want to see what Jameis...
He was doing pretty good.
I want to see what Jameis can do with a full season there in New Orleans.
He was doing pretty darn good before he got hurt. He had that team rolling, so.
And hell, he kept him rolling even through the injury. He
Yeah.
was like, he was the heart of that
He was
team on
the
the
energy.
crutches. He was doing his robot dances on the crutches, just keeping
still
him
the
moving.
best.
He was the gears that kept the New Orleans Saints machine going. And then finally, the Packers retain cornerback Rasul Douglas on a 3-year deal. So they get back the guy who needs the receiver to stop playing to get an interception.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Rasul
he
Douglas
had
played
his
good last
controller unplugged.
season. No, being a Packers player, I have to give him crap, but I'll hand it to him. Rasul Douglas played pretty damn well.
He earned that
last season. Now, moving on to a few cuts. The Raiders released defensive end Carl Nassab, of course, after signing Chandler Jones. The Titans released wide receiver Julio Jones. And the Bills release veteran defensive tackle Star Lutalele. So a couple of releases right there. And then moving on to the real fun stuff, we got some trades here.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, one that I personally am very happy about as a Vikings fan. The Packers traded away Devontae Adams to the Las Vegas Raiders, and in return got a 2022 first round and second round pick. Now, that's pretty good that you guys got, what'd you say, 4 picks in the top 60?
4 picks in the top 60 now.
That's pretty damn good, and this is a good receiver class, so don't get me wrong, I think they're going to snag somebody in the first round. Or maybe wait for the second round. I don't know if they do it this year,
Go
especially
double
losing
receiver in
Devontae
the second
now.
round.
I personally think they should go double receiver in the first round because, then you're almost, with how good this receiver class is, if you take 2 in the first round, you're almost guaranteed to get a pretty damn decent player out of one of those 2. But I am still very happy to see Devontae go. And there's 2 ways this can go. You got your good way, which is the Vikings path, like we did when we traded away Stephon Diggs and then drafted Justin Jefferson. That's the good path. But another way this could go is the good old Bill O'Brien Texans path when they traded away DeAndre Hopkins
They didn't
for
get a
David
first and a
Johnson
second, though.
and a second round pick.
They didn't get a first and a second.
So, you got your 2 paths because the Texans went to a 4-12 season after they traded away their star receiver. So,
yeah, but they also didn't have the team that Green Bay does. I mean,
I don't know, man. They had a pretty good team when they did that. The Vikings got lucky when we traded away Diggs and replaced him with Jefferson. So I don't know if it'll happen again, but
it sucks because I said on the show last week that I thought the long-term extension would eventually get done. They actually did offer him the long-term extension, and Devontae just wanted to play with the Raiders. He wanted to play with Derek Carr. It was a career decision. So I'm glad that we were at least able to get what we could out of him. And it's funny because everybody kind of talked about with Rodgers, trade him, get what you can out of him. And look, what it turned to be with Devontae, we just got what we could out of him, which I think was fair value.
Oh,
especially depending on what we do with the picks. But apparently, Gutekunst was very firm on getting the first and the second this year. They wanted to do the second or the first next year, but he held his ground, and eventually the Raiders gave in because they wanted Devontae too. So I'm glad they, didn't just give in, and we got 4 picks now in the top 60 instead of 3 and an extra 1 next year. Because, like you said, this is a very deep receiver class.
I'm just going to take a moment to gloat a little bit. I've been saying this since last offseason when the Rodgers stuff started, that I think Devontae wants to play with Derek Carr in Las Vegas. And I guess I was right because,
He
like
sure
you
does.
said, it is insane to me that they offered him. I heard reports that it was even more, not much more, but a little more money than the Raiders were.
They did,
and he still picked the Raiders. That is
Yep.
crazy. So I hope the best for him, and I got to imagine Derek Carr is beyond ecstatic right now. He's like a kid in a toy store, and he just got to pick a $100 toy. Like, just absolutely loving it. But moving on to the next trade, which is another receiver actually. The Rams traded wide receiver Robert Woods to the Titans for, get this, a 2023 6th round pick. The Titans got an absolute steal in Robert Woods, and it's probably a large reason they ended up releasing Julio Jones, who didn't work out for them last season. But God, you want to talk about great value for the Titans. I get the Rams were in kind of a cap hell and we're in a corner, but not even a 6th round this year, a next year's 6th round. That's just crazy.
A little bit of some Packers Twitter inside info. They did contact the Rams about Robert Woods, but the Rams were adamant about not trading him to an NFC team.
They wanted to get him out of the division.
So
it's probably or the conference.
But yeah. So I am happy again that our front office was at least trying. They're at least, getting their, what do you want to say, their foot in the door. They're getting their ticket in on the raffle. They're at least giving it a shot and not just sitting by and doing nothing.
I've heard people give Robert Woods the nickname Mr. Underrated, and I love it because he is. He is a very good receiver.
I thought that when he got hurt last year that was it for him. I didn't think that they would do as well as they did, and they struggled for a little bit, but they were able to overcome it.
OBJ was the big thing, yeah. So great pickup by the Titans. Moving on to the big trade, the off-season blockbuster, in my opinion, even bigger than the Russell Wilson one, I'd say. The Texans trade Deshaun Watson to the Cleveland Browns. Now listen up, because there's a lot of confusion with these picks.
6 draft picks total.
6 picks to the Texans, 1 pick to the Browns, including Deshaun Watson. It is insane. So the Browns get, of course, Deshaun Watson, as well as a 2024 6th-round pick. And then when it go to the Texans, they get a 2022, 23, and 24 first-round picks, so 3 first-round picks, as well as a 2023 third-round pick, a 2022 fourth-round pick, and a 2024 fourth-round pick. So, man, a lot of picks there. The Texans are set on draft capital, to say the least, for 3 years to come.
Yeah, they should be pretty darn good in the next few years here.
Yeah, you give them 4 years to use up all that draft capital. If they even use it half decently, they're going to be a pretty damn solid roster all around. So, and on Watson, the Browns gave him a 5-year, $230 million deal, fully guaranteed. Which that was the crazy part to me.
That's the craziest thing.
We won't get into it, but of course there's still the allegations. There's still the risk of NFL suspensions happening for Watson. They worked it out somehow that the cap hit this year is only like super low, like $10 million, I want to say, is all.
Based off incentives and signing bonus.
But then that money's going to catch up to them in the next few years, so we'll have to see how they play that out with their cap situation. But huge pickup by the Browns, and Baker Mayfield is yet to be dealed out. He requested a trade. They said they'd trade him, but yet to happen.
Yeah. And I think the only reason that this one is not more earth-shattering or groundbreaking than the Russell Wilson trade is that we were expecting it. Everyone kind of knew Deshaun Watson was going to be traded, and we knew it was going to be a huge deal. Even though we knew it was coming, it still was like, damn. Even though we knew it was going to be a large deal, the Russell Wilson deal kind of came a little bit out of nowhere.
And it was so early.
It was so early on. Thing, yeah. So I think that's the reason that the Russell Wilson one, I in my opinion, is still a little bit more groundbreaking compared to the Watson deal.
I like it. I knew Watson would get traded, of course, for sure. But I did not think the Browns. I would have guessed a lot of teams before I went to the Browns.
That too. I didn't have the Browns on the radar.
And then finally, moving on, the Colts and Raiders did a straight-up player-for-player trade, which is kind of rare to see, but I always like to see it. The Colts now have Yannick Ngakoue, the edge rusher, and the Raiders now have Rock Ya-Sin, the corner. So I'm pretty sure that the Raiders were just looking to trade Ngakoue and said, who's the weirdest name on your team? We'll take it. Just tell me. And they're like, we got a guy named Rock. And they're like, not weird enough. What's his last name? And they said, Ya-Sin. And they said, we'll take him. What do you need? No, but still.
They needed the Ngakoue.
They needed the Ngakoue. Great overall trade. I love to see even trades like that because I think this is going to work out super well for both teams. The Raiders needed some corner help, and they pick up a pretty decent young corner. The Colts needed some edge help, so they pick up a pretty decent young edge rusher. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't get much better than that. And then finally for trades this week, the Falcons just earlier today traded Matt Ryan, also to the Colts, for just a 2022 third-round pick. Now, I get Matt Ryan is pretty old, but he's still a pretty damn good quarterback. I'm surprised they didn't get at least a second out of him.
He's only 5 years removed from his MVP season.
Exactly.
I mean, that's kind of a long time, but it also isn't, you know. I mean, no. So, yeah, I thought they probably would have gotten more for him. Maybe a couple of more later round picks, but I guess the third was the best offer.
Yeah, if you're going to do only one pick, I could definitely see them not picking up a first for Ryan. I'm really surprised they couldn't at least deal out a second. Really, really surprised.
And their head coach, Arthur Smith, so they, to kind of jump the gun a little bit, they signed Marcus Mariota shortly after trading Matt Ryan.
Yep.
Their head coach was Marcus Mariota's quarterback coach in Tennessee, Arthur Smith. So
interesting.
I think that had a little bit more to do with it than we know.
Interesting. I like that. Now, moving on past the trades to the signings. Now, again, of course, so many signings happened. There was much less than there was last week, so we actually have a good little list of them here. But again, if you're ever curious about any other signings, or especially now at this point, any free agents that are still available, go check out sporttrack.com. I've been using it all week, checking it periodically. It's a great website to track NFL free agency, sporttrack.com. So moving on to the signings, and probably one of the biggest one, the Buffalo Bills signed edge rusher Von Miller to a 6-year, $120 million deal. Now, I understand paying him, and I definitely understand the pickup. I am very nervous about the length of that contract. I know he can retire at any time, then it still kind of gets voided, but a 6-year deal for an older player? I mean, Von Miller's got to be what, 31 already? 31, 32?
I think, yeah.
Very surprised by the length of the deal.
Yeah, I doubt he finishes out that whole contract, but I think for at least the first couple or few years of it, it'll really pay off for the Bills.
Oh, certainly. They're a couple of sacks away from a freaking Super Bowl run. So,
right.
Moving on from one edge rusher to another, the Raiders signed Chandler Jones to a 3-year, $51 million deal. So, great signing by them. That is, of course, why they traded Yannick Ngakoue and released Carl Nassib, because now they have Max Crosby across from Chandler Jones. So, pretty lethal quarterback rushing duo right there.
Mm-hmm. They're going to have that edge rushing duo in the AFC West now.
Man, the AFC West just gets a little more stacked every day. It looks like it's freaking like Ellis Island in the early 1900s. I mean, there's just players flooding into the AFC West every day. You see somebody new. It's insane. It's going to be a scary division out there. Speaking of the AFC West, moving on next, we got the Chiefs signing Juju Smith-Schuster to a 1-year, $10.75 million deal. Now, we've been talking about how they need that wide receiver too, and to be honest, again, kind of like the Packers, I think they still pick up a wide receiver with the late round pick in the draft for them this year. But Juju Smith-Schuster will definitely be a good bridge guy.
That's a really good pickup for them, I think.
A good rental guy, to say the least. Next up, the Panthers won the punting jackpot and signed punter Johnny Hekker to a 3-year, $7.6 million deal. I was really hoping the Vikings got him. I really like Johnny Hekker, so that's a steal for the Panthers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't expect or know that the Panthers needed a punter. But yeah, that's quite a good one to pick up. He's able to coffin corner it, and he had the most punts down at the 1 last season.
In my opinion, it doesn't even really matter if you need a punter. You got to pick up Johnny Hekker if he's there. I mean, the Vikings also extended their punter Jordan Berry on a 1-year deal once he got picked up, but forgot to mention that earlier. But I like Jordan Berry. Really wish I had Johnny Hekker though. Would have much rather Johnny Hekker. Moving on, the Rams signed wide receiver Allen Robinson to a 3-year, $46.5 million deal. So they lose Robert Woods, but they get a guy who, in my opinion, is just as good when he has the quarterback play to back him, and Allen Robinson. He had a very down season, but everyone in Chicago had a pretty down season because it was a transition year, to say the least. It certainly was. So I think he'll be able to pick that back up and be the player he was with Los Angeles.
I was really hoping that some of these NFC North letdowns would go to Green Bay, not just all flood to the Rams. But
you guys didn't have the cap room.
At the time. Now we do.
There must be something about LA, like the team, because the fans are nothing. I mean,
No. I think it's
the
a lot
Rams
to do with
fans are just
location.
awful, so it must be a lot about the location. Maybe the coaching staff. It'd always be fun to go play with Sean McVay.
Probably really fun
Exactly.
to coach with, or to play for.
So happy to hear that for Allen Robinson. Next up, the Titans signed tight end Austin Hooper to a 1-year, $6 million deal. Now, of course, tight end is kind of an underrated position in the NFL, in my opinion, but that's a great pickup for them, something that will really help them, especially in the offense they run, because they kind of run that RPO with Tannehill a lot, so a tight end really works well in that system. So
He's much more of a receiving tight end, so...
Yep, and they had
become another-
Anthony Fisker? Is that who they had?
Is Fisker or Firkser?
Something like that.
But yeah,
But like
he's
you,
more blocking.
As I say, like you just said, Austin Hooper is much more of a receiving tight end, so it'll be fun to see what they can do with him. Next up, the Steelers signed linebacker Miles Jack to a 2-year deal. The money was not specified when I looked it up, but that is a huge signing for them. That is actually one of my favorite signings that I've seen this week. I think that will very much help them out. They have a young, great linebacker in Devin Bush, and when the Jaguars released Miles Jack, I was surprised because he is an all-around beast. I mean, he can cover, he can run support, he can tackle, he can rush the passer. It is insane everything he can do, and he plays with so much heart. So I really like that pickup by the Steelers.
Yeah, I was thinking that he'd stay in Jacksonville and team up with Olakun, but instead they swapped him out. And now it's a heck of a pickup for Pittsburgh, who can team him with Devin Bush.
Certainly. That's going to be a scary linebacker core there. Next up, not my favorite, because Miles Jack was my favorite, but I'd say probably the best signing so far. The Bengals pick up free agent tackle La'el Collins from the Cowboys. Now, of course, we've said it so many times, it's like a broken record. All they need is an offensive line, and they pick up a really solid offensive lineman here who has experience playing on a good offensive line and is still pretty young. I want to say La'el Collins is only, 27, 28?
I think so,
Which is pretty young for an offensive tackle, so love to see it there for the Bengals. And the AFC just gets more stacked and more stacked every day. I mean, I really like it because it blows the NFC wide open for about any team. I mean, who knows who's going to go to the playoffs for the NFC next year, because the AFC is going to be beating the hell out of each other all year, so it'll be fun to see. And then a kind of fun little NFC North player swap, if that's what you want to call it. The Packers signed Bears punter Pat O'Donnell, and then not too long after that, and then one of the players happening even before that, I want to say, the Bears signed Packers wide receiver Equanimous St. Brown, and they also signed Packers guard Lucas Patrick. So lots of players getting jumbled around there between those two teams. It's pretty funny to see.
All the NFC North teams just want the former Packers. I get it. I know.
It's a big rotation. Za'Darius Smith met with the Vikings today.
I saw that.
Which, if we signed Za'Darius Smith, who is like a prototype 3-4 linebacker.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be so confused because I thought we'd be a 3-4, and then we signed a bunch of 4-3 defensive players. So if we sign a prototypical 3-4 linebacker, I'm just going to have to truly give up on trying to guess and just wait for
them.
Mix
4-3-3-4, I guess.
Just every other drive, we give them a new look. Hell, if you could do it successfully, it'd confuse the hell out of an offense. It'd be kind of fun to do. You'd have to get some smart-ass defensive players to have that rotation, but it would certainly be fun to see. So that is everything for the signings, extensions, all that kind of stuff. So now we're going to take
the Marcus Mariota one today.
Oh, yes, of course. Just today, after they traded Matt Ryan, the Falcons signed quarterback Marcus Mariota
to a 2-year deal.
On a short-term 2-year deal. And actually, the thing I find most interesting about that isn't the signing itself, but the future repercussions I feel like it's going to have. Because I was thinking that the Falcons, when I first read the Matt Ryan news, I was thinking they probably take Pickett at 8 now.
Right.
Very Ryan-like, little mobile, but much more of a pocket presence. But now that they pick up a true scrambler, mobile running quarterback like Marcus Mariota...
Are you saying they're going to pick Desmond Ridder?
Are they going to pick a more mobile quarterback, whether Ritter or Malik Willis is more what I was thinking, and kind of get a project guy to learn behind Mariota. And then they have that hybrid receiver running back in Cordell Patterson. It might be really fun in a fast tight end in Kyle Pitts. It might be really fun to see one of those true like Baltimore type mobile quarterback running guns offenses there in Atlanta. So very interesting. And when we do our next little mock draft, which will probably be in 2 weeks, we're going to do one of those split mock drafts. I might have to make them take Malik Willis because it'd be fun. It's going to be fun to see what they're able to do with Marcus Mariota.
Oh, this just happened.
Oh, breaking news.
Jamison Crowder to the Bills.
Oh, I was really interested to see who'd get Jamison Crowder. I was amazed that the Jets didn't go get him back. I thought they would.
Surprised they let him go. The Bills get another.
The Bills just rotate veterans receiver. I mean, what was it? 20 they had John Brown. Then 21 they had Emmanuel Sanders
and Cole Beasley.
22 they're gonna have Cole Beasley and
No, they cut Cole Beasley.
Oh, they did. Well, then 22 they're gonna have Jamison Crowder. Who I really like. He's one of my favorites, and he's actually not really much of a veteran. I want to say he's only like 28.
He's only 29, I believe.
29. Yeah. That's a great pickup there from Buffalo.
And getting back to the Mariota signing, and kind of just made me think about all these quarterbacks changing places. All the between Wilson and eventually Baker and Matt Ryan. Of all the quarterbacks, the one to stay with his team was Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. The one least likely to stay with his team at this point last season is the one that stayed with his team. I just think that's really kind of funny when you think about that.
And then his number one receiver straight up dipped on him.
And then the number one, and it's like, well, that's not who we expected to leave at all.
I think it's hilarious that I know it was probably just a coincidence. I don't think it was actually like anything for real. This is just kind of a speculation. But the fact that like the day after Rodgers officially signed his deal is when they did the Devontae trade.
So he did know.
Yeah.
For anyone wondering, Aaron Rodgers was aware that Devontae Adams was not going to play for the Packers.
He did. I'm happy to hear that because that's shady as hell.
He said he hoped to have him back, but he understands like that's what he wanted to do and he wants him to be happy. So I'm glad that there was that understanding too, because I feel like I just everybody was really like, wait, can he back out of his deal like these other players are doing? But
everyone was like, the ink's dry. The ink's dry.
Yeah.
It's already done.
It was.
So now we're going to look at some of the free agents who are actually still on the market and some guys that we are really surprised by. So I was originally going to do, we were both going to do our top free agents, but I actually kind of switched it up. So Callan has his top 3 best available free agents, and I have my top 3 most interesting available free agents. They're kind of like some wild card guys that I feel like could do really well. So, Callan, I'll let you take it first. Who is your top free agent?
Yeah, so, I guess this isn't really in any order. This is just kind of the top 3 that I think are available. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Tyrann Mathieu, the safety out of LSU. Now, I'm surprised that he's still on the market, honestly, because he's one of the top safeties in the game. I could see him going to the Raiders, because now they're going to need, some defensive back help to battle all those star quarterbacks in that division. I also see him possibly going to the Saints to replace Marcus Williams. I'm not sure where their cap situation's at, if they would even be able to sign him. But if possible, I think that'd be a good spot for him. And he just also could seem like a Raven. He seems like one of those players that could end up being a Baltimore Raven. Just because
I totally agree,
he seems to fit their kind of mold and play style. And then the second free agent is Taron Armstead, the stalwart left tackle. And I think the only reason he's still available is that he missed 12 games last year due to injuries, and it was different injuries. It wasn't just one. So I think that's hurt his stock a little bit. But one team that I think really needs to sign him is the Chicago Bears. And as much as I don't like to say that, being an NFC North rival, but I think it's what would be best for that franchise. Because right now, the only left tackles they have is Jason Peters, who I think is older than Andrew Whitworth, and Jermaine Ifedi, who got cut by the Seahawks. And, I mean, if you're getting cut off the Seahawks offensive line,
That's rough.
that's not very good.
I think that
So-
might be rock bottom.
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of NFL, that might be rock bottom.
So, I mean, yeah, because they really needed offensive line help. So, I could see the Bears really picking him up, to help solidify their offensive line. But I think it's most likely that once it's possible, he re-signs with the Saints, especially now that Jameson is back. And then the third one I'm going to talk about is the most recently released Julio Jones. And not just as much as, a homer here, but I believe that the Packers would be the best fit for him because Matt LaFleur was his offensive coordinator in Atlanta when he had that MVP type year with Matt Ryan, the year Matt Ryan won his MVP. So I think that, LaFleur really knows how to use Julio really well. And plus, we could finally go back to that Hail Mary offense I've always wanted us to run. Just run down there with Cobb and Lazard and Julio, and Rodgers just going to chuck it 70 yards every time.
What route do you want me to run? Just go.
Just go.
Go.
Just go.
Just
we
run.
got Tanyan. Oh, yeah, we re-signed Tanyan, too.
Oh, you did re-sign
Yeah,
Tanyan?
we re-signed Tanyan yesterday.
That makes
So
a little
I
more
forgot
sense
to
that you
mention
let
that one.
That
But-
makes a little more sense that you let Austin Hooper go.
Yeah.
Then.
But yeah, so, and then obviously with Julio, the other ones, I had the Bills, but now that they just signed Jamison Crowder, I think he's probably out. But then, the usual suspects, the Chiefs, the Bucks, the Patriots, I think they're all in the mix for him. Tom Brady obviously had messaged Julio at one point in time, which when he got released and asked him to come down to Tampa Bay. I certainly hope not because they have enough weapons. Let it go.
Yeah, for real. You don't need more talent.
Let Green Bay stockpile some talent here for a little bit.
Because I think actually I forgot about it, but when you said Brady recruiting, didn't they also get Russell Gage?
Yes, they did.
Tampa Bay? So
Yep.
yeah. They don't need more. Just
Yeah.
stop.
They got
Please.
Evans. They re-signed Godwin to that 3-year deal. Now they got Russell Gage as a slot man. Jeez.
Tom, stop. Please.
Gronk's more than likely going back.
Let's be honest, Gronk's
yeah.
going back. I love the Taron Armstead to the Bears. Like you said, it's scary as
It is. I know.
rival, but that is a great.
But as an analyst, I think that would be a really great fit.
That's a
for him.
great match there. Protect Justin Fields. I like that.
Yeah, he needs it.
And ironically, Callan ended on a homer pick, so I'll start with my homer pick. I got my top 3 most interesting guys, and to start off, I have former Giants guard Will Hernandez. And I think that the Vikings need to pick this guy up. There's a lot of other teams I could see him going to. Any team that needs inside linemen or guards, this would be a good pickup since he's younger for a guard, because guards in the NFL anymore play pretty long. They play till they're 34, 35, 36 a lot. So 26 is pretty young for a guard. This guy maybe had a bad season last year. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He had a bad season last year.
Everybody,
But he was on the Giants, and it is hard to play well when you're sitting in a pile of shit. I'm sorry to say it, Giants fans, whatever. But no one on that team had a good season. He started off really well, and I think that he can definitely be reverted to what he was earlier in his career. Like I mentioned, at 26, he's still pretty young. So the Vikings need to pick up an inside lineman at some point in free agency. So I think this is the guy to pick up.
Is his brother Aaron?
Oh, God, I don't think so.
All right.
I guess.
I thought you were going to say, oh, God, we're not going there.
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know.
I can't deny it for sure,
I'm
but
sure
I doubt
if he was, it's not like it'd get talked about.
I was going to
so.
say he cut any ties.
Yeah.
He didn't cut him down, but he cut ties.
Yeah. Well,
And next up,
just curiosity.
Next up, I have Denver Broncos cornerback Bryce Callahan. Now, actually, both former Broncos quarterbacks, Callahan and Kyle Fuller, both currently free agents. But I really like Callahan because you're going to be able to get him on a better deal, a more team-friendly deal than you're going to be able to get Kyle Fuller, because this guy flies under the radar. I feel like he's one of those guys, kind of like Yannick Ngakoue, that is such a good player. For some reason, no team wants to retain him. Like, he's just constantly moving around teams. and not really getting the respect he deserves.
I think his talent is so specific. He's specifically a slot corner.
He's specifically a slot
guy. He can't
guy,
play really anything else. So it's hard to, if there's not 3 receivers on the field, he's not on the field. You don't want him playing outside, matched up with those X and Y receivers. So,
yeah.
I think that's just why he gets kind of limited and tossed around.
So he's 30 years old, so he's getting a little older for a corner. But, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but any team that needs a slot corner will be able to get a great team-friendly deal with this guy and pick up a good player and a good locker room player, especially. And then finally, for my final guy, and by far who I think is the biggest wild card and the most interesting free agent, I have former Bears running back Taron Cohen. Now, pick any team that passes the ball a lot, and this guy will fit in there perfectly. He is the definition of a receiving back.
Great returner, too.
Great returner. He can do it in the punt and the kickoff game. He can run a whole-ass route tree from the backfield. He was like the kind of receiver turned running back before that was a thing, because he's always been a true running back. And I think the only reason he wasn't ever much used as a receiver is because he's pretty short. I want to say he's only
5'8" or 5'9",
5'7" or 5'8". But he can run so many routes out of the backfield. Even when he gets the ball in his hands on handoffs, he does pretty decent. Of course, not as good as he does in the receiving game. But a matchup I really love for him is the Bills. I know they just signed a receiving back, and who did they just sign?
You talking about McKissick?
McKissick. Oh,
no,
but they didn't sign McKissick.
But they did not.
That's
McKissick
true.
changed his mind and went back to Washington.
I forgot about that.
Actually, they need another running back.
So even better, yeah. Devin Singletary, I don't know what their problem was with him last year. We kind of talked about it last week or a few weeks ago, where he kind of proved himself when they gave him the opportunities, but then they just cut the opportunities. So I think if the Bills go out and sign a guy like Taron Cohen and just get pretty much a receiver in the backfield, that is exactly what they need for that offense. And that's it. That's your news dump.
Week.
That's our free agency predictions. So
we'll see what things that we say are completely wrong this time.
Exactly. I'm sure by the time this is out, even we're recording this on Monday night, so I'm sure by the time it goes out on Wednesday afternoon, every single thing we've said will be wrong by then. But we'll have to see. So thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, don't forget
to eat the W.